we work with you throughout your time at Boston College to figure out kind of what you're interested in, who you are, what your values and interests are. And then once you kind of figure that out, we want to help you prepare and figure out how to get into that industry or that path that you're so excited by. And then we want to help you act, right? So taking your resume, your cover letter, and your interview skills and going out there and seeing what opportunities are available and applying to different graduate programs or jobs or internships or whatever that might be. So it's kind of this model that's always moving. You're always exploring new things. You're always learning more about yourself, right? That's the biggest piece of this puzzle. And we're here with you the whole time to kind of figure out all this new information about yourself and the world and figure out how to be best prepared. So there's coaches in the Career Center, and I'll talk more about this in just one second, that can help you at every stage of this model, right? And there are folks that are coming in as first year who know exactly what they want to do, right? And are already in the prepare phase, you know, looking at opportunities and fine-tuning their resumes. And then there are people who are in the explore phase, and there are coaches like me who will work with you to figure out, okay, what are my next steps? How do I move forward and kind of feel confident on how I can make an impact? So I guess I kind of just said this a little bit, but the way that our office works is there's a team of career exploration coaches, and we have specific programs for you, events, networking opportunities, and digital resources for you to, again, figure out what you're interested in, what your values are, what skills you have, and kind of how those fit into the world, right? How can you find an industry that's going to suit your needs and how you can make an impact in that industry? Okay, so there's a lot of stuff that you can do at BC. There are different retreats. There are a lot of different workshops that you can go to kind of figure out questions. And then once you figure out kind of what paths you might be interested in, what industries that you're really excited by, you're ready to join a career cluster. And a career cluster essentially is the grouping of different industries that all have something in common. Basically, it's the, you know, something about the hiring timelines, when they hire students throughout the year, the specific skills that you need in different industries, right? So we kind of group those together so that we can have specific programs and a coach that can give you the best tailored advice. There are clusters that you can explore. So I want to kind of have you take a look at these clusters and see what might be interesting for you. You know, we have business consulting and finance. We have a coach for that. We have programs for that. We have awesome alumni that come and speak to students about that. And then we have communication, media, and arts. And then we have healthcare and nursing. We have government law and public policy, science, tech, and engineering, and then education, nonprofit, and social service. So if you're looking at these different colors right now and thinking, oh gosh, I have no idea, that's when you would talk to me. You would be in the exploration cluster, right? But if you know that one of these things or a few of these things are really of interest to you, what you can do today is actually go on the Career Center website and you can join a cluster. And what that means is essentially in the top right-hand corner of all of our cluster pages on the website, it's really easy to find, is join this cluster. And you're giving us your email address. And all it means is that on a semi-regular basis, a little bit more than monthly, you're going to get a special tailored email from this specific coach telling you about all the opportunities that are coming up that are specific to this cluster, right? So if an awesome alum is coming to campus to give a talk, or if there's a workshop on how to make a specifically tailored resume, right? You're going to know about that because you joined the cluster. So I definitely encourage you to join the cluster to get that information. You can join multiple clusters too. And then if you decide after a year or a couple months, yeah, I'm really leaning towards one direction, you can just unsubscribe from the other cluster. But I think that's one of my best pieces of advice for incoming students is join a cluster early and really just start to engage and see what types of opportunities are available, because there's so much going on, and that those emails can give you just kind of a targeted way of seeing stuff that's interesting for you. Okay, so moving right along to the purpose of our presentation today, I'd love to hear from some folks if you want to to just unmute yourself and go right ahead and speak right out what you think the purpose of a resume is.
I think the purpose of a resume is for like the place you're applying to, so that they can see your skills and what like you're gonna contribute to their job.
Wow, I couldn't have said that better myself. Absolutely. So provide a summary of the skills, not all the paid work internships you've ever had, right? Some people think the trajectory of your entire life, everything you've ever done should be on your resume. And I'm here to tell you that that is not true, right? The true purpose of a resume is to get across your skills so that you can get an interview, right? That's pretty much the whole purpose. You send it around when you're applying for certain things, and you're hoping that someone sees your resume, identifies the skills that you've had, the experiences you've had, and what that could mean for this job that you're excited about, this internship that you're excited about, and then they call you for an interview. So we'll kind of talk about how you can do that, how you can make this resume, you know, just a tailored one-page document to hand over to someone to get them excited about you. Oh, you may have seen the answer to that, but I'd love someone else to kind of call out, how long do you think it takes an average recruiter, who's someone that usually works in the human resources department at an organization? They're looking through resumes. They're usually the first person that go through a bunch of resumes to pass it to the hiring manager. How long do you think they look at the average resume?
2 minutes.
2 minutes? Any other guesses?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
We have a guess of a minute in the chat.
Oh, okay. So a minute, 30 seconds, 2 minutes. You ready for this? 14 seconds. I guess you could say like 14 Mississippis, right? 14 seconds can be a really long time when I'm just staring at you for 14 seconds, right? Or I'm looking at a piece of paper. But all in all, for how long it takes us to craft our resumes, right? That's a quick period of time. Okay, so what can you do to make yourself stand out in those 14 seconds? What is crucial? It needs to be easy to navigate. First and foremost, you want to look at the piece of paper and understand exactly what it's saying. You need clear category headers. You need to have titles for each of your experiences and organizations in a way that is easy to find. Right, I'm going to give you many examples, so don't worry about like thinking about through that right now. But just kind of on a high level, clear, right? Looking at it, I know what organization you worked for, I know when, right? It needs to look professional. So again, we have one page. I know that was one of the questions that someone had. High school resumes oftentimes go on to multiple pages because you're kind of you're trying to show all the activities, all the volunteering, all the academic projects that you were part of in your high school career. Instead of doing that on a college resume and a professional resume, it's really thinking about those specific experiences where you accomplished something or you developed a specific skill that's relevant for whatever you're applying to, right? So with that being said, you have to figure out on one page kind of how to make that not crowded, how to have consistent formatting, right? If you're going to bold all the organization names, it needs to be bold throughout, right? And it needs to be graphically appealing. We get lots of questions at the Career Center about, you know, templates. You can download some pretty snazzy templates offline these days. And the true answer with whether or not you should have kind of a, you know, cool graphic for your name, and then over here is your skills listed out with a different color. Unless you're in graphic design, right, or you're going into something art related with, they want to see kind of what you can do graphically, it's best to stick to kind of black and white, clear, consistent formatting. And the reason for that is it's easy to read, right? You don't have to like look, recruiters are used to looking at these resumes so quickly. So if you throw something, even if it's beautiful, in their face, right? And you kind of have to look around to see where are the skills, where are the education, right? It may just be to the other pile. It can be distracting, right? And there's another reason too, is in this digital age, a lot of times if you're applying to a larger organization, your resume will go through a computer software system before it gets to a human, looking for keywords. And those computers only pick up kind of black and white, regular fonts, you know, normal size, things like that. So it's really important to focus kind of on the look of your resume. So be descriptive. So just like I think it was Sebastian said, you know, we're really focusing on the skills here. What skills did you use or build in this role? So you want to think about action verbs, right? Those are your key to your entire resume. What did you do? I managed, I led, I collaborated, right? You want to put forward those action verbs to show that you showed initiative in those experiences, no matter what it is, to build. You had an experience, you did something. And then highlight accomplishments, right? So this is a big thing too. So if you're taking notes, I would take note here. So rather than just listing, and I made this mistake, similar to what Hannah was saying, if I look at my high school resume, college resume at the beginning, I thought that when I was listing different things that I did, I kind of explained what my responsibilities were. Like, this is what that job was. It was almost like a mini job description, right? I see this all the time with students. They say, you know, worked front desk or answered phone calls, right? But no one knows what worked front desk really means, right? If you're working front desk at a law firm versus a social service agency versus a doctor's office, and if you have a manager or if you're managing, those two things are really different, right? So you want to focus on what your projects were. What did you do when you were working at front desk, right? Were you the first point of contact? Were you coming up with a contact system to talk with doctors when there were emergencies? Like, people have these awesome experiences, and you want to talk about what those are. So think about really what you did, the skills you were developing, the actions that you were doing, not just duties, right? So if you were a lifeguard, like sitting by the pool, I've seen that, right? Or looking after the pool. That's so much. You're in charge and responsible for all types of people, and you know safety protocols and blah, 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 blah. And maybe you saved someone, and maybe you came up with a new safety protocol, right? So you want to hear about those. This is your resume is the place to really talk about your impact and your accomplishments. Okay, so this was another question that I know that some of you have. So what do you include, right? Keep talking about, you have one page, what do you include? Again, it's selective. It's not everything you've ever done. That being said, I think everyone should have what we call a master resume. So it's going to be a Word document or, you know, a Google document that's saved on your computer that does list everything you've ever done. And at this point, your high school resume probably looks something like that. So you have the beginnings of a master resume. And the point of that master resume is to keep track of things, right? You are going to go through, you know, different phases in your life. I was a film studies major in college, right? And then I worked in film for a little while, and then I did this, and then I did that. So I have resumes for, you know, different industries because I learned different skills with different experiences. So your master resume, you want to have everything you've ever done. It's going to be a full menu of your life. And then when you're applying to something, right? Say it's a leadership position in an office at BC, right? In the Career Center. Say you love this presentation, you want to talk to people about resumes all the time, you want to apply to the Career Center. You're going to look at your master resume and then look at the job description. And the job description says, okay, you need to have oral communication skills. You need to learn how to, or you need to know how to work one-on-one with peer students, right? Coaching. Then you look at your master resume, you've tutored, right? Maybe you taught a preschool class, or you were a camp counselor, right? And in those different experiences, you've spoken to parents, you've given lectures, you've facilitated groups, right? So you've done those things that would prepare you for a leadership role at college in the Career Center based on this job description. So you're gonna kind of pull from that master resume the things that you think are most relevant to the skills that are listed on the job description of interest for you, right? So I just look at it like a buffet, and you're kind of like making a plate that you want to hand to the recruiter, right? To say, this is what I can give to you. This is how I'm relevant. And the other thing is include more than paid work, right? So you know, no one's coming into college having 9 internships, right? Or having this, maybe a few people, but you know, these like full-time jobs, right? So what you need to do is really think about where you've developed skills, right? Service is definitely a part of it. Athletics, right? If you were a leader or a captain of a club, if you did research, if you, anything like that, those things should be included. Any activities. I'm sure you've been learning a lot about BC, but there are so many student organizations at BC, and you know, to be in a leadership position or even to be a part of some of these organizations, it requires time, right? And you do things, you raise money, you put on events, you know, handle marketing for an organization. All those things are skills that you're developing that are directly transferable to real paid positions. So make sure that you're thinking about those things when you're creating that master resume and when you're putting it on, you know, your tailored resume, your one-page document. I think I've gone on and on about this enough at this point, but the content of your resume is going to vary depending on the job or internship, right? So maybe you're someone who is potentially interested in public policy and government and getting an internship there. And maybe you're someone who is, you know, really interested potentially in doing scientific research, okay? And based on the fact that, you know, you volunteered at the State House giving tours last summer, and, you know, you won some science competitions and tutored kids in science in high school, you might be focusing on 2 different things, right? And on 2 different resumes. So really think about the keywords in the job description of the internship that you're applying to, and kind of tailor it, take that resume and make it relevant. So another big question that I get from students, and I think someone asked, is, should you keep high school stuff on there now that you're in college? And right now, yes, because you just started, right? So what else would you have on there? So through sophomore year, we say it's acceptable to have your high school and your high school activities and accomplishments on your resume. After that, after sophomore year, you could leave your high school on it if there's a strong alumni base, or if it's recognizable in the community where you'll be or you're applying. So I think an example of this is if you go to school at BC, right? But you're from New York and you went to a really large New York high school and you're applying to internships, say junior year in New York City, and that's definitely where you want to be. If you know that there are a lot of alum from your high school in New York City, right? And people talk about that all the time, then you can keep your high school on that resume because it might be going out to organizations where there are high school alum there. Other times it doesn't really matter. Does that make sense? Okay. And as you become more involved at BC, your activities from high school, you know, will phase off your resume because you're going to have more that's recent, that may be kind of a step up from what you've been doing in terms of skill development from high school. Then if you have these lifelong achievements, which so many BC students do, you know, such as Eagle Scout Award or these other incredible things that you're really proud of, always feel free to keep those on your resume. So here's a sample resume that I think, you know, really illustrates the principles that we just reviewed. I know another key question was, what sections do I need to have on my resume? They differ by student. It differs by what you've done, right? Especially as a first-year student. Some people are going to have a lot of work experience. Maybe they've been working since age 15, right? With varying levels of responsibility. Some people have, you know, been focusing on research, and some people have been a camp counselor, right? So depending on what your path has been, your categories are going to look different. And one way that you can brand yourself is by the way that you actually name your categories. So everybody is going to have a contact information section. So if we're looking at Edward Chow, it's really clear. You have your name, your email address, your phone number. And here's an interesting thing. Right now, it's kind of a conversation in career services, you know, whether or not you actually need your home address on your resume. You don't have to. It's definitely optional. Now that you're a BC student, you can add, you know, Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, and that's fine. You can add your zip code. If you don't feel comfortable adding your address, because we're such a global world at this point, I don't think it necessarily matters. Most things are virtual anyway, right? So, so that's that. Then everyone's going to have their education section. For students in college, your education section is always going to be first, right? This is what you're spending your time doing. You're a full-time student. You want it front and center. You want to list out the full name of the college that you attend. So some of you might be in the Lynch School, right? If you're a nursing student, if you're in Worcester College of Arts and Sciences, you want to list that out as well. And then the full title of your degree, right? Bachelor of Science in Biology. If you're undeclared, you can write undeclared right now, that's fine. And then you can add some quick things if you want. No one has a GPA yet. We actually say you don't have to have your GPA. If a job requires you to include it on the application, they'll ask for it. So it's really up to you if you want to put your GPA. We generally say if you have above a 3.3, go for it, but it's not necessary. And then under that, we have the experience section. And this is where you could change the name of this title. It could be relevant experience, right? If you are like obsessed with marketing, right? And you've done all these little marketing projects and you've done an internship in marketing, you could have marketing experience as your title. And then everything that you've done, whether it be volunteer, whether it be an activity, internship or anything like that, you can have under that section, right? So right under education, the next top section, whatever you call it, is going to be whatever you want to stand out the most to that employer, whatever is the most relevant, okay? So most people have, if they have work experience here, they'll add the work experience. But again, if you're really tailoring it, this person clearly, you know, has kind of a tailored healthcare type of resume here. And you can see that they have health coach, which is a BC job, right? That you don't get paid for. So this is an unpaid job, a health coach, right next to an internship at Pfizer and an internship at a nonprofit, right? And they're all a little bit different, right? But for the healthcare industry, this kind of all goes together. And you'll see that, you know, there's clear formatting in terms of the organizations here are bolded. And then the title or, you know, the role that that person had here is italicized. And you can actually see across, you know, if you go across from the title, you can see when that person was employed or was working in that role. So this person was a healthcare education intern, summer 2014, right? And we know that the location of the organization, it's just really clear, right up front. And then the biggest stuff, right? The most important aspect of all this are the accomplishment statements. And another question I know that came from you all was, how do I represent my skills and my accomplishments on a resume? Is it in a paragraph form? Is it sentences? And the answer is bullet statements, right? So you want to think of, again, the top skills, your top accomplishments, the things that you're most proud of from any experience, and make them bullets, right? Focusing on those action verbs, right? If you look at all of these bullet statements, each one starts with a strong action verb, co-authored, consolidated, participated, right? Actions. And there's lots of detail here. I know exactly what this person did. They co-authored a first published piece of the organization's stance on the issue of mandatory HIV. So instead of saying research, right, or worked or assisted in research, I know exactly what they did, right? And it sounds impressive. I'm impressed, right? If you move down, you can see, again, the verbs continue to be strong, right? Gathered patient data, supervised and trained, participated in monthly group meetings, right? This is the bottom of the resume. I just wanted to have it close up so you could see. So after the experience section on most college students' resumes, they'll have another section that's either leadership. Recruiters love the word leadership, right? It's a top competency. And there are so many opportunities to develop leadership skills at BC, right? So some people have leadership experience, some people have volunteer experience, some people have extracurricular. So again, depending on what you spend your time doing, like the second most relevant or important thing that you want to push forward to whoever is reading this is going to come after that experience section. So it's whatever you've done that you want to focus on second to that next section. Again, many students have leadership. And it continues with the exact same formatting. So the organization is bold, the role is italicized, you have the location, you have the specific dates, right? And then we're focusing on these action verbs. You'll notice too that because this person is still doing it, it's 2012 to present, that the verbs are in present tense. So coordinate, create, serve. Whereas if we look back at this other page, these are all in past tense, or the first two are in past tense, co-authored, consolidated, right? So making sure your verb tense line up too is a small thing that makes a big difference just in terms of how it looks professional. And then the last section here, again, it depends on what you want to pull out of your major resume. This person just lists activities that they participate in at BC, right? Appalachia volunteers, campus school volunteers, Boston College Neighborhood Center, the Chinese Students Association, right? So it shows this person's well-rounded. And they chose to, in this activity section, just kind of give brief descriptions. This section is a little bit less formal than the others. You don't have to have bullet statements for activities. It's just kind of explaining like who you are outside of this other stuff. Some people have a skills section at the bottom too. If you have computer skills or language skills other than English, that would definitely be something to list on your resume as well. So if you know Excel or Adobe Photoshop, right, or Python or anything like that, you can have a skills section there too. And depending on, again, what you're applying to, that might be really relevant.
There was a question not about resumes, but the career clusters.
Yeah.
How do students join those or get into that newsletter?
Yeah, absolutely. I can actually show you right now. Let me just switch my screen. Let's see. Can you see this? Okay. So this is the Career Center homepage, right? If you Google Boston College Career Center or bc.edu/career, you can get here. There are a ton of resources on this page. And if you are bored, I encourage you to check it out because there's so much good, like kind of fun stuff here for you to start exploring and take self-assessments and stuff like that. But I won't go on forever. I'll just show you what I wanted to show you. So this is the homepage. I'm kind of hovering over this button that says career clusters right here. If you click on career clusters, there's a whole page that kind of says what I said. This is what a career cluster is. It really has to do with your skills, values, and interests, and we want to help you find the best fit. So if you're someone who, isn't sure, if you click on career exploration cluster, right up front, up top here, it says join this cluster. I can click that, and there's a sign up form. If you're someone who's really into healthcare nursing, right, you click that, and you can join the cluster right here. You can also, there's a ton of other resources. You can see the specific coach that you'd be working with. So you have someone specific to ask questions to, right, who is an expert in this field. And if you keep scrolling, there's even more information, right? Different paths within healthcare, and then resources that you can explore. So again, I could go on. I love this stuff forever, but it's that easy. Just press that red button and you subscribe. The formatting basics. I've said this a little bit, but one page. There are some exceptions. If you are a nursing student or if you are hoping to enter the teaching field, then sometimes there'll be more than one page resume. And if you're at some point where you're applying to grad school, you'll probably end up going over one page as well, and they'll specify that. But for right now, one page is the rule. Margins are no less than a ½ inch, right? So that's the white kind of blank space on the edges of the paper. If you have it any more than that, it kind of looks funky. You don't want any font size that's smaller than 10. That's pretty small itself. So 10 or 11, 12 usually. Consistency, like I said, in punctuation and formatting. You want to use bullet points, and you want to use font style that's same throughout. And we haven't talked about cover letters yet, but if you are applying to a position that asks you to write a cover letter, which is essentially like a statement of interest, why are you excited about this role? You would want your fonts to kind of line up, because it's 2 documents, but it's what you're handing over as a reflection of who you are. So just some basic formats there. Okay, so action verbs, numbers, and accomplishments. So this is the good stuff when you're actually thinking about, and I'm sure you all have been thinking, what experiences do I have and how may I, articulate those in my new college resume? So the key things, again, are focusing on those action verbs. And I haven't said this yet, but anytime that you can quantify kind of how many customers you were serving or how many X, you accomplished or how many dollars you raised, you want to quantify, because that just, again, gives detail and shows your accomplishment. So here's a before statement. And it's not a bad statement, right? I've seen this all the time. So if someone said, they were working as an assistant and one of their bullet points is oversaw office operations for the study abroad office. I kind of know what they do, but not really. I mean, that could mean you're just sitting at the front desk reading a book, because that's some jobs, right? Or it could mean oversaw office operations, right? It could mean that you are coordinating meetings with faculty members and international scholars and reading applications, right? So same job, different way of articulating the skills developed in that role, right? So supervised and trained staff of 4 students, so number, to courteously and efficiently handle incoming calls. Researched potential new overseas program sites and sponsoring international institutions. Wrote in-depth summaries used by faculty steering committee to choose new programs, right? So it's the same job, but now I know specifically the skills that this person was gaining, right? Supervision, right? Training. So there's critical thinking that goes into that. There's collaboration, there's teamwork, right? There's communication with handling the incoming calls. And then thinking about researching potential new programs. What went into that? And then writing briefs for faculty. I know this person can now write, right? I know that they've worked with people in different positions. So I can tell by these 2 bullets kind of the skills that this person's going to come to the interview with, right? I know that they might be able to be an assistant in my office because they need to be writing. They need to be working as in a collaborative team. And you don't get that from that first bullet. So again, focusing on thinking about the skills. Think through every experience you've had or one specific experience and think about, what did I get out of that? Was I talking to people? Was I writing a lot? Was it critical thinking? Was it teamwork? Was it cultural competency, right? We're thinking about the end result too, the accomplishment, and then anytime you can quantify, you want to quantify. So we actually have an action verb list on the BC Career Center's website that after this presentation, I'm going to send an email to Hannah that has a bunch of awesome resources and she can send it to you. So this will be attached. But what's cool is that if you are kind of thinking about, okay, I was working in kind of an admin position and doing this, but you can't think of action verbs to like really have a strong statement, we came up with a list for you. So it's pretty awesome. So if you want like a strong way to start something and you know that you were doing research or you know that you were in a creative role, you can go here to kind of get some inspiration. And what do I mean by accomplishments, right? So accomplishments show that there were positive impacts on the place of work that benefited your employer, the clients, your coworkers, or fellow students. You created something with lasting impact, right? You fashioned a creative solution or problem. This is so cool because so many times students come in and they'll be like, well, I just, I scooped ice cream last summer. I said, well, I scooped ice cream and I know how much hard work that goes into that. And then after asking a bunch of questions, I learned that, this person came up with a new system for kind of like a assembly line, right? To serve over 1,000 people a day, right? And it included different team members or whatever. And it ended up being highly successful, and they ended up having more sales and getting through the line faster, et cetera, et cetera. And I only found out about that because I was asking so many questions, like, well, tell me more about that, you know? And she was just chatting. And then I figured out that this person came up with a new business system, right? And so to be able to put that under, you know, what you're, instead of just scooped ice cream is awesome. So really thinking through kind of what you did in these roles. And if I asked you, you know, just not in an interview, but in a career coaching, you know, appointment, like, what are you proud of in that role? Or what do you think you got out of it? Even if it was just like a challenging situation, right? You had to like critically problem solve sometimes when your manager was out on maternity leave and you had to figure out how to do X, Y, Z, right? So really thinking through those things, and that's what you want to kind of build your statements out of. And so we have a little rule here that will be in those materials that I send out to you afterward. But the way that you really think through these bullet statements, these accomplishment statements, is thinking on results that you achieved, right? The action you took, and the specific problem or project that you faced. So every single bullet should basically cover an action, right? Something about a project, and the results. So let's break that down. Examples. Action verb, coordinated. What's the project? 3 fundraising events for local shelters. What was the result? Raised more than $8,000, which was 20% over goal, and greatly improving community awareness, right? So this could easily be an example. If you join a student organization, right, or a service project, there's a lot of fundraising that happens, right? This could be you this semester or next semester. You coordinated with a group of people on what fundraising and what ended up happening, right? So this seems, you know, to me, really impressive. This is awesome, but it's something that BC students are doing all the time. And so instead of just having, you know, volunteered for Pine Street Inn or whatever the specific volunteer position was, I know exactly, you know, worked with team members, right? Had to speak to people in order to fundraise, right? And then actually was efficient enough and competent enough to raise all this money, right? So again, showing a real accomplishment. This is just one more example because I think it's helpful. This is a lot of, again, what I see first year students coming in with this type of kind of bullet on their resume. Something about supported the front desk and serving customers, right? Afterward, developed and implemented a help desk system to keep statistics on calls received from 500 plus customers, which reduced the search time and knowledge database. That sounds really impressive, right? But again, if you break it down and think about, you know, various projects that you've done, you've accomplished something too. You're here at Boston College, you've probably had to write about it in your essay and explain all the stuff that you've done, right? So it's really about figuring out what those accomplishments are and articulating it here, being mindful of those verbs and that results and quantifying whenever possible. One more example. So this is what I was talking about. This is what I did for my first resume. I just kind of listed my responsibilities, right? Responsibilities included coordinating, blah, 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 blah. I want you just to like kind of zoom out and look at this though. It's like, it's a big old paragraph. I can't even get through it, right? I don't even want to read through it right now. It's too hard to read. It may say a lot of great stuff, but it's just like a big chunk of text. But if I move on, right, we're breaking out these tasks into actions with results, and it's much easier to read. There's some blank space. I can easily skim over because I only have 14 seconds, right? Coordinated arts, press releases, compiled a mailing list of 10,000 customers, and contributed to the copywriting of promotional radio commercials, right? So this is the exact same position, internship, from this one. And I'm reading it, I'm paying attention, and I'm impressed. But this one is just tiring, right? So it's these little things that can make you stand out, really, about the way that you're kind of showing what you've done. Okay, so we have about 15 minutes left. I would love for you all, I know you're all on computers, But for you to all think of one specific experience where you've had some success, right? Think about the positive results of what you did, whether academic project, a volunteer project, anything like that. And then I want you to try to figure out how to write just one bullet statement using that project action result formula. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes right now to just, you can write it down or type it up or whatever you need to do, but really try to articulate just one bullet from an experience that you're proud of. If anyone would love to share, that would be great. Maybe you could even write it in, yay, someone wrote it in the chat box. That's awesome. Ooh, collaborated with an editor to create a new website where I uploaded articles for readers. Awesome. Being a PA, awesome, right? And I know that one of the questions that you sent me too was, how can I appeal to the person who is reading a resume when you have no relevant experience? Well, this is a whole other presentation, but there are 8 key competencies that all employers are looking for entry-level candidates, right? And we have information about that I can send in that follow-up email as well. And those skills, really quickly, are oral communication, written communication, teamwork, collaboration, critical thinking, leadership, cultural competency, digital technology. I think I said all of them. But if you think through your experiences so far, I know on your BC application, now that you're here, you have skills in each of those areas, right? You've worked on those. And in and out of the classroom at BC, you're going to continue to develop those skills. So it doesn't have to be, you know, if you're going into marketing, you don't have to have a marketing internship as in your first year, right? If you have worked on a website or you've worked on a project, you created graphic design, you can articulate that, that's great. That's showing that. Even if you haven't done that, right? But you can show that the classes that you're taking right now and the organizations that you're working with, you're working to create social media marketing for other group members. You know, there are creative ways that you can go about developing these skills so that they're relevant, that aren't like marketing job, right? Marketing internship, right? So getting involved in organizations, volunteering, seeking out different projects with professors and staff members can help you to build on those skills that will be relevant for that resume. Okay. So the next steps, I'm going to email Hannah and I'm going to give you a bunch of resources. One awesome thing is that there are samples online for every different career cluster, right? So if you want to see specifically what a nursing resume looks like, or a teaching resume, or someone who's interested in going, who's a pre-law student or a pre-med student, you can see real BC students' resumes online. How they talked about their volunteer experience, their student activity experience, the sections that they used, right? The formatting that they used. You can just kind of copy it, right? And that's how you can start building your own resume, obviously with your own content. But in terms of that formatting sense, there's a lot of resumes, samples on our website, which I think is really helpful. There's so much more I want to tell you about, right? Because the Career Centers really is an awesome place. I don't know what you thought about it before, maybe nothing at all. But we're here truly to help you kind of explore and figure this all out. And we are available now. We have virtual drop-in resume critique appointments, which are not appointments, they're drop-ins, that are happening right now and will happen all throughout the school year. So if you have a resume right now that you're feeling okay about, I mean, we talked through a lot today, so you could go and revise. But then if you want to get a critique from a staff member like myself, if you go on our website, and I'll add this to the email as well, Monday through Friday, 11 to 4 p.m., we have virtual drop-ins. And you can just upload your resume and you can get it back within 3 business days with some comments, right? We also are doing virtual appointments. So if you want to talk to one, I know you have enough going on, but we're here for you. That's the point. Yeah, so I will open it up for questions now. well, there's one more question that I didn't get to. I think everything else I did. What's the difference between a CV and a resume? That's a great question. And depending on where you are coming from, they may use the term interchangeably. So I know in the UK, they use the term CV instead of resume, right? But in the US, usually CV stands for curriculum vitae, and it's basically a long list of accomplishments that have specifically to do with academia and research, right? So if you are looking to go to grad school, or if you are applying to a research position, or if you're looking to go into academia, you would be focusing on all of the projects you've done, the papers you've written, the conferences you've presented at. It's a specific kind of industry specific resume. It's usually longer than one page and lists kind of academic accomplishments. You use that sometimes to apply to fellowships, usually later in college, or to grad programs. Yeah, but for the most part, most first-year students are creating resumes, which focusing on, specific tailored experience. That's the main difference too, right? So it's not everything you've done in academia and academically, it's tailored. Oh, this volunteer work, this activity, that's related to this position that I'm applying to. Okay, now I'll be quiet. See what other questions you have.
There was a question about what is LinkedIn and should they have a LinkedIn?
Yes, thank you. Yes, great question. So LinkedIn is an online networking platform. It does a whole lot more than that. But basically, it's a professional social media site. You make a profile, you add pretty much what you have on your resume to your LinkedIn profile to show, I guess, the world. You can be private. Kind of who you are and what your professional interests are. So you go on there and you connect with people, almost like friending on Facebook or following on Instagram, who have similar professional interests as you. If you go to a conference and you meet someone, right, a lot of times afterwards you can LinkedIn them and say, hey, it was really nice to meet you. And you can kind of keep in touch that way. There is a news feed on LinkedIn that people share articles that are relevant to specific industries in the field. So it's a professional resource to get to know other people and to showcase who you are as well. There's also a job board on there that for later down the line, like internships and jobs are posted. Yeah, and you can message people and you can connect with people on that platform. We do suggest you get a LinkedIn, but we actually launched last year a brand new platform. And I know there's so much stuff called Eagles. You're gonna forget this in 2 seconds, but I would write it down. Eagle Exchange is a brand new networking platform just for the BC community. So it's just for BC students and BC alum all over the world. We launched it exactly a year ago. We have about 6,000 alum and about 3,000 to 4,000 students on it now. And it's LinkedIn, but just for BC. And it's way better because there's no need to friend or connect or anything. It's just open access. You can send a message to anyone. You can see everyone's profile. The whole point is to have career-related conversations. So write that down. These are alum that only sign up to get on this platform to talk to students about exploring careers. It's an amazing, amazing resource. And that's what I would say you definitely have to have. I think that's gonna be a crucial thing about being successful as a BC student. I'm sure as you're coming in, people are saying, oh, the BC Alumni Network, that's a huge reason to go to BC. Yes, and it's on Eagle Exchange. This is how you can access it. You can search for people by geographic area, industry, by year they graduated, by certain affinity group, right? If you only want to talk to first generation alum, you can do that, right? You can filter by that. So you can have these types of conversations with someone in a more kind of informal way, and you know that they want to talk to you. So Eagle Exchange, awesome.
How do we register for it?
Yeah, so all BC students have free access to it. And I think if you have your Agora name, which you do right now, you should be able to sign up. So it's on our webpage. It's on each cluster page, links to Eagle Exchange too. But if you just Google Eagle Exchange Boston College, I'll make sure to include that in my lengthy email now to you as well. But it's a great resource. Okay, and I have one other extremely exciting, I think, announcement to make. But next week, you all are going to get an invitation from the Career Center for a brand new program called the First Generation Career Mentorship Program. It's something new that we're doing this year, and it gives you the opportunity to get insider information from the Career Center about events and opportunities and ways to kind of develop professionally and take advantage of all the resources we have at BC. You'll get to know staff kind of on a personal level and be connected to somebody, so you know when you're looking at the building or our website when it's so big, I know Julianne, right? So if you want to be a part of that program, you have to sign up, but you are all invited. And you're going to get a personalized email next week from me telling you about the program. You don't have to do anything. We ask you a few questions to join about your interests and how you feel about career. And after that, it's just us giving you information and us reaching out to you. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. But I hope you join because we're really excited about it. And we know kind of how hard you've worked to get here. And we want to kind of help you work through all BC has to offer, especially in this kind of hybrid virtual environment, by kind of just telling you, this is who I am, let's work together.
Thank you so much, though. This was wonderful. And we have it recorded as well. So we'll be able to share this out with you all so you can come back and go through all of those examples and stuff. But thank you so much again for coming in and chatting with us, Julianne.
It was awesome to virtually see you, meet you. And I'll send up a follow-up email, and feel free again to ask questions over email. And I look forward to hopefully meeting in person soon.